Hello everyone, and welcome to In Focus on UATV. As Putin makes one last desperate push with an absurd ultimatum demanding Ukraine leave Donbass in 2 months, Ukraine continues to deliver powerful, precise strikes that destroy up to half of Russia's oil refining capacity, cripple its chemical and military-industrial complex, and grind down Russian occupation forces on an industrial scale. At the same time, Belarusian dictator Lukashenko, fresh from North Korea and a new friendship treaty with Kim Jong-un, suddenly declares that Belarus is preparing for war, just ahead of his planned meeting with Donald Trump. The Kremlin's latest ultimatum and what it really reveals, plus Lukashenko's aggressive statements and his dangerous games between Moscow, Pyongyang, and Washington. Russia has delivered a new ultimatum through American intermediaries: withdraw Ukrainian troops from Donbass in 2 months or face even harsher terms. President Zelensky calls it emotional pressure timed for U.S. domestic politics, and notes that Russia has failed to capture all of Donetsk region in 12 years, so it certainly won't do it in 2 months. Meanwhile, Ukraine keeps hitting Russian oil refineries, infrastructure, and manpower hard. Watch how this ultimatum exposes Moscow's weakness rather than strength.
Russia has delivered an ultimatum to Kyiv through American intermediaries. Ukraine has 2 months to withdraw its troops from Donbass. Otherwise, Moscow will seize the region, and the terms of negotiations will become even harsher, the president of Ukraine said.
Today, Russia is putting pressure on the United States because what Americans call the midterm elections are approaching. It is clear that the United States has to take various steps in both domestic and foreign policy. We very much hope that within the negotiation track, we will still be able to bring this issue back to logic rather than Russia's emotional reactions, because it is already reacting emotionally to everything.
Such ultimatums call Moscow's real intentions into question, the head of state noted, especially since they are being voiced alongside threats of further advances by the Russian army. If Russia's goal is really limited to Donbass, then why does the Kremlin say it will go further? In other words, the issue is clearly not just Donbass. Volodymyr Zelensky said, the Russian army has failed to occupy the whole of Donetsk region in 4 years and will not manage to do so in 2 months. The aggressor state is simply running short of resources, above all, manpower. From January 1st to March 26, 2026, the Russian army lost 89,000 servicemen killed and wounded, more than Moscow managed to mobilize during the same period. The Kremlin's blackmail points to one thing only: to achieve real peace, pressure on Moscow must be increased, says Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the head of the office of the President of Ukraine.
This war is precisely about proving the bankruptcy of any public position Russia puts forward, and about the fact that Russia cannot be dealt with in negotiations through appeals like, "Would you perhaps like to do this or not?" Russia can only be dealt with through hard coercion. Hard coercion means increasing Ukraine's strikes on Russian infrastructure and stepping up pressure, economic pressure, on Russia.
Bucha is the clearest answer to those who suggest simply handing over Ukrainian territory to the aggressor, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said. According to her, Brussels constantly reminds Washington of Russia's crimes of Ukraine, so that the United States puts pressure on Moscow, not on Kyiv. EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy.
We have raised these issues, and they say they are acting as mediators. But of course, it is obvious that Russia's demands are unjustified. At least we have chosen an approach under which we do not fall into the trap of any of those demands, because we always remember that Russia started this war. If they are rewarded for it in any way, we will see more of the same. History is full of such examples. I mean, over the last 100 years, Russia has attacked at least 19 countries, some of them 3 or 4 times, and not one of those countries ever attacked Russia.
Earlier, in an interview with Reuters, the president of Ukraine said that Washington was prepared to finalize security guarantees once Kyiv made the decision to withdraw its troops from the territory of Donetsk region. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio pushed back against that interpretation, saying Washington had issued no ultimatums to Kyiv over surrendering territory. Ukraine decides for itself what to do regarding its territories, he said. According to the U.S. official, the point was that security guarantees would not take effect until the war is over.
We've told the Ukrainian side what the Russians are insisting on. We're not advocating for it. We've explained it to them. It's their choice to make. It's not for us to make for them. We've never told them they have to take it or leave it.
Talks in a trilateral format. Ukraine, the United States, and Russia could take place in the coming weeks, Volodymyr Zelensky said. According to him, Kyiv is ready for meetings in any country except Russia and Belarus. For now, however, contacts on ending Russia's war against Ukraine remain on hold, reported by Andriy Dmitrenko, UATV News.
While Putin tries to force concessions at the table, his closest ally is sending dangerous signals. Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenko, just back from signing new agreements with North Korea, has told his military that the time of peace is over and Belarus must prepare for war. This comes right before his planned meeting with Donald Trump. See how Lukashenko continues playing both sides while remaining a key threat to regional security and a reliable servant of the Kremlin.
On April 1st, Lukashenko held a meeting to review the results of a comprehensive inspection of the armed forces. He told 300 officers that Belarus urgently needs to prepare for war. If someone suddenly decides to look at us through the sights of a weapon, we will respond, the dictator was quoted as saying by propagandists. At the same time, Lukashenko assured that Minsk is against war and threatened the military with new combat readiness checks.
After the deployment of Russian tactical nuclear weapons on the territory of Belarus, after the Oreshnik and everything else. Where is the balance here? This is not balanced. Belarus continues to be prepared as a springboard for an offensive directly against NATO countries.
All of this is happening in parallel with a clear warming of relations with Washington. After many years of isolation, Minsk is negotiating with representatives of the White House and concluding deals. On March 26th, the United States lifted restrictions on the Belarusian Ministry of Finance, the Development Bank, the company Belaruskali, and some related organizations. In exchange, the dictator released 250 political prisoners. A similar scenario was carried out in December 2025. At that time, Lukashenko announced an amnesty for 123 political prisoners, and the U.S. Treasury canceled sanctions against a number of Belarusian companies. Donald Trump thanked the dictator on his social network Truth Social for the release of political prisoners and said he was looking forward to meeting him at a peace council session.
But as far as Lukashenko is concerned, he sees that his approach is working with great success. The United States and Trump received an effective solution to the problem of political prisoners, not to the repressions, of course, but to the issue of political prisoners, plus some economically beneficial relations for the U.S., that is, the supply of Belarusian potash to the United States. Although direct supplies are still a long way off, such cooperation routes already exist.
On March 19th, at the McCain Institute in Washington, U.S. Presidential Special Representative John Cole spoke about his meeting with Lukashenko in Minsk and about the release of political prisoners.
When I opened the door, they were all like this. I found out later they thought they were all going to be executed. So I opened the van door and I said,
Cole even stated that the United States is considering the possibility of inviting Lukashenko to a meeting with Trump at the White House, or at his residence in Mar-a-Lago. However, this in no way indicates a turn by Minsk towards democracy and international law, analysts believe. The Belarusian dictator continues to build ties with the United States' long-standing adversary, North Korea. On 25th and 26th March, Lukashenko and Kim Jong-un signed a bilateral treaty on friendship and cooperation between Belarus and the DPRK in Pyongyang, along with several memorandums and agreements on partnership in education, healthcare, and agriculture. They also exchanged souvenirs. The North Korean dictator gave his Belarusian counterpart a sword and a vase with a portrait of Lukashenko himself, while the latter presented his ally with a submachine gun. Such cooperation between Minsk and Pyongyang is beneficial to Moscow. Experts are convinced.
And I think that, first and foremost, this visit and this friendship between Lukashenko and Kim are needed by Putin and for Russia's war against Ukraine. For Lukashenko, it is also the fulfillment of a dream, because for 30 years he has been trying to build North Korea in Europe. For him, this is the model of a state.
Analysts believe that Minsk's attempts to establish dialogue with the West are purely tactical in nature and do not change the regime's strategic course. This means that Belarus remains one of the key threats to regional security and a serious risk factor, both for Ukraine and for NATO countries. Reported by Karina Lalayan, UATV News.
That's today's In Focus. Putin's latest ultimatum changes nothing on the battlefield, where Ukraine keeps systematically dismantling Russia's war machine. Lukashenko's sudden war talk affirms that the Kremlin and its satellites feel the pressure mounting. Ukraine stands firm, strikes effectively, and dictates the real pace of events. Our defenders prove every day that resolve and precision defeat brute and empty threats. Thank you for watching. If you value straight truth from Ukraine, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this with friends who stand for strength. Together, we keep pushing forward. See you next time. Stay focused, stay unbreakable. Slava Ukraini!